prospective listeners and viewers. We are your favorite co-hosts. I am Martina, and this is
Lisette.
and yes, welcome to our podcast, or if you're viewing us on YouTube, which we hope you are, welcome to our channel. You can do both if you'd like. That will really help us out, and we appreciate and would love that from you all. But yeah, welcome to another episode of just us having a conversation around what we normally talk about, and we've had some guests on, as you all know. I can't remember where some of our guest videos are in this lineup, as you may all be watching this video. But we always like to sometimes just take it back to us two talking, because that's what we do best. We can talk for hours. Literally, we were going to try to get another episode in, and we just spent like a lot of time talking about other stuff and realized like we need to record.
Yes,
So we were like, let's get down and put these all this stuff on our video. That's just what we do. So today, really, we were like, okay, what can we talk about? So much to talk about. We were like gentrification. And all people are like, okay, gentrification, that's very broad. There are a lot of different types of gentrification. But as everyone knows, we are avid TikTok watchers or consumers. We are avid consumers of the TikTok. And on both of our TikToks, we, been seeing about how Americans have been flocking to countries like Mexico. I think Mexico in particular, at least what we've seen. I think let's say you mentioned maybe because they're getting I don't know if they're getting tax. Well, I don't know if it's tax cuts, but
no, I think Puerto Rico is the one where I saw that there's some tax breaks. There's some benefits into.
There's a benefit. Okay, so basically, Americans are moving from America to America. With like Puerto Rico. Okay. And we just really want to get into this because I think, we'll probably touch on Puerto Rico absolutely too. But in Mexico, we have, I think, just so much has changed with COVID. We got people that, a lot of us don't have to physically be in an office anymore. People, are moving to different countries, and some of their organizations are fine with that. But even, people that are retiring or vacationing, whatever, too. Gentrification is obviously an issue with that. But in particular, Americans that are moving to Mexico and just down there just talking shit and just not realizing the era of their ways and the consequences that this is having on the communities of Mexico. So I'll let you, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. If you know Chicago, are from Chicago, or have lived in Chicago, gentrification is something that we've seen and know and kind of understand in Chicago and the communities that have been impacted and are continually to be impacted today around gentrification and what it means and how quickly it can really drive up the cost of living in a community. It can force people to have to, move out from communities they've been living in for generations sometimes, and they've, never been anywhere else, but they just can't afford staying there, whether it's because they're renting, whether because their property taxes are just skyrocketing. And when I saw sort of some TikToks, that's always where it begins, around what was happening in Mexico, I quickly went and just started kind of looking for articles or anything, YouTube videos of people kind of sharing. And, and it's something that I saw videos of people talking about, or articles from 4 years ago, right? Like that this was something that was starting to really gain traction, but it was more on like the touristy parts of Mexico where people were moving and wanting to live there. And now you're starting to see more of like Mexico City and people moving there. And I watched just a quick snippet of a video. I think it was from a couple months ago. I can't remember if it was CNN or one of the larger news channels, where they were like talking to people that live in Mexico City, and we're asking questions about what's the impact, and people that are living there or have restaurants there and things like that. And one of the the individuals that they interviewed was this woman, and she was saying, you know, I appreciate the business that it brings and, you know, the money that it's bringing, but you know, it also has like this negative impact, right? You're raising the cost of living. We can't afford to live there.
Yep.
I believe this woman had to actually give up the place that she had her business in because she could no longer pay the rent where the business was at. So she had to go somewhere else where she could, you know, afford it. And I think that's what gets me from, you know, Americans moving there, because it's like you don't understand what you're doing to those communities, to those cities, to those individuals and those people that live there, because you're getting paid in dollars. Your dollar goes so much more, right? It's worth so much, you know. And obviously people that own, you know, whatever apartments or anything housing there, and they see you coming in and you're paying, you know, you're able to pay much more than the people that actually live in those areas. Of course they're going to prefer your money over. And like, you know, that's capitalism.
That's
Like
capitalism for you. Yep.
I'm like, it's everywhere. Like you just, you know, you're just trying to make, you know, money, and you have the conversation, well, do you fault the business? Like, oh, whatever. Like, but it just it's unfortunate, because then you hear stories, like I know I've seen a few videos of people being like, oh, you know, why don't you speak English? Like, it's like, you are in their country.
You are in somebody else's country.
I'm like, why do they need to speak? You learn the language.
You learn the language, yes.
And I think that is unfortunately the mentality of a lot of Americans, not just white Americans. This is where I blanket, and I'll include myself, because there's moments where I find myself being that American, you know, and I'm like, and I have to like, all right, you gotta check yourself. You gotta, you know, look at your privilege, look at all these things.
Because, at least you recognize it. And I do too. You know, we recognize it.
Yeah, you know, and it takes a, you know, and for the most part, a lot of white Americans don't always recognize it until somebody else points it out. And sometimes they recognize it even, and sometimes they don't, even when you point it out. And I think that's my issue with, you know, Americans moving to places like Mexico, or moving to places like Puerto Rico, whose economy is already, you know, stretched thin, who are just, one incident away. And, as we're filming this, Hurricane Fiona just went through Puerto Rico, and we're seeing sort of the devastation. And the people that moved there that were Americans, primarily white Americans, they get to leave.
Yep.
They get to just up and leave and be like, yeah, I'll come back when everything is fine. Or have the privilege of like being like, oh, like when is the power gonna come back? Or like,
yeah, or they can easily rebuild, or they can get their things fixed quicker because they do have the resources.
And I think, and for us to not recognize our own privilege and just be like, well, this is how it should be, and who cares? Like, I don't, my money, it's what I'm gonna do. I can afford it. But it goes back to something, are we really that ignorant or that, selfish that we would just be like, it's my needs above those whose country I'm choosing to be here, and I should respect and sort of honor or be mindful of what's happening around me? And I was like, and honestly, why are you leaving the US? Why don't you just stay and fix the US? Like, how about we have that conversation around gentrification? Like, why does gentrification have to exist when it's a matter of particularly standing with, Black and brown communities and being like, hey, we can change things. We can make things better for everyone. And we can have a better living experience here in the United States, where we aren't being driven out to be like, oh, I'm going to move to Mexico because you know what? My dollar just goes way more out there.
Yeah, let me just do that.
I was like, and that's easy. It's easy. Like we all want the easy way out. We all wish to just win the lottery and make all of our debts go away.
Amen.
and do that, which, fingers crossed, maybe. But, but it's really just, to me, mind-boggling sometimes when I see people who have moved to, whether it's Mexico or any other country, and have this expectation of it's going to be just the way that I'm used to living. And it's going to be like, you have to cater to me. I don't have to respect your traditions or whatever. I think that's just really just insensitive and just really not something that should be happening or that we should expect, for some other country to be like, yeah, let's tailor everything. Let's cater for you. You're American. Yay. You're here. You're saving us.
Yeah. Some countries do tailor more to Americans.
Oh, yes.
In this situation. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
There's just so much here like to unpack. And I think, first of all, most of Americans are assholes. Is who argue with him. Like you said, I think we all are a little selfish and assholey every now and then. But
how can you not when it's been you're socialized?
If I say like that is how Americans function most of the time. Americans think, they're better than everybody else. Oh, we the wealthiest country. Not really. If we the wealthiest country, why we have all these people that are in debt from student loans? I know that's a different conversation too, but you're supposed to be so wealthy. And I get, and maybe that's why, because you got all these people that owe all these universities or owe the federal government, the state government, thousands of millions of dollars back. Maybe so, I don't know. But I'm like, how are you really going to be prosperous when millions of people in your country can't even afford to go to school and you don't give free education because you think it's a right and not a privilege? But I digress. We ain't talking about that. Anyway.
We could.
And so I think, Americans, of course, take that ideology with them when they travel to most places, which again, why most countries, they really hate to see us coming. They might want to see us coming for that money, but they really hate to see us coming because we just have an attitude. We have a stink about us. And again, how are you going to go to somebody else's country and say, why don't you speak English? That is so rude and disrespectful. That's just like going to somebody's house and being, I don't know, and be like, oh, this house is really small. I don't know. That was a weird comparison, but people know what I'm trying to say.
I get because
it's awful.
Like it's like you're insulting them.
You're insulting people. Like they don't have to speak your fucking language. You're coming to their country, And if you want to build a life there for yourself, your family, whatever, you need to abide by the rules and the customs that the people there have. And they speak a certain language. So even if you don't speak that language, you shouldn't be over there being, why don't you speak this language? You at least try to learn some basic greetings or basic exchanges. But I think, so that does follow into gentrification. And, you're right. Americans are going to countries like Mexico and they're bringing the US dollar, which is worth, I don't know how much more than what pesos are in Mexico, but it is worth more. And you're coming there. I mean, it's essentially the same thing that's happening here. We have more, not even wealthy people, just people who have a little bit more money sometimes coming to a neighborhood. This time they're going to a country and wanting to buy property there. And the people who live there, what happens? They get kicked out or they're being forced to move. Or you mentioned this woman who had to shut down her restaurant because she can't afford rent. And this is just a cycle that keeps happening. And to me, it seems like, okay, there's nothing wrong with people wanting to move into a neighborhood, but you need to move into that neighborhood and understand, again, the customs and the people that are there. And instead of blaming things on the people who are naturally from that place, why don't they just increase salaries? They don't want to do that. Why don't they increase the hourly wage? They don't want to do that either. And this is why I think there's so much animosity around that word gentrification with new people coming in and old people there, because new people oftentimes don't respect the way that things are done, or they come there thinking they're better. And the people there are like, listen, you can come live here, or maybe not. Maybe sometimes they don't even want you. I think most of the time that's the thing, because people, they hear that word gentrification, or they think gentrification. And oftentimes it does have a negative meaning. And it's just really sad that instead of increasing someone's salary, increasing their hourly wage, the families just have to move away, or someone has to sell their restaurant or whatever, or they're being bought out because they can't afford to even keep their restaurant there, or whatever, keep their business there. And, you know, for many people in their communities, they've been there for generations. You know, they have family there. They have friends there. They may have church there. You know, that's where they know people. That's where they have grown up. That's where their family has made roots. And of course, we see it here in Chicago, where they just can't afford to live there anymore. And it's awful. But the thing is, it keeps happening and nobody's changing it. And when I say nobody, the powers that be. So they said we got people want to go up to space and go fuck some up there instead of trying to make things right here. That to me is so mind-boggling. I guess because, you know, I don't have that type of money. I don't understand that type of thinking to me, you know, again, this goes back to selfishness. But to me, if I had that sort of money, especially billions of dollars, you are never going to spend that amount of money in your lifetime. Even your heirs probably would never spend that money in their lifetimes if you decide to leave them your fortune. And it's, to me, it's like, you can't take this money with you. You can't take it with you. That's why I do admire those individuals who are into philanthropy. And not just into philanthropy, they're literally like trying to spend their money away, doing volunteer work, donating, because they're like, listen, when I'm dead, I'm dead. I can't take this with me. So I might as well try to benefit and help people while I can. And I have the means. I have the resources to be able to help other people. And to me, it's, again, like, I just think people always leave one place and thinking they leave this place and go to another place. And you're just bringing all of this with you there. You're not making anything better. So when I hear people say they want to go to space for what? Well, so you can go fuck that up too? America's
Space
already fucked up. And the earth is fucked up. Wait, what?
Space don't need you.
Space don't need you. Okay? And it's just like, to me, that's just so frustrating, because, and it's just like people, especially those with money, just, okay, well, we don't like what's happening here. Well, we just gonna go somewhere else and fuck that up too. And the thing is, they're allowed to do it. They're allowed to do it. We don't tax the wealthy like we should. Instead, we tax the everyday person. Tax the hell out of them. And this thing, again, I think it was Elon Musk. Yeah, I'm saying his name. I think it was It might have been on Twitter, since he's in the process of buying Twitter. I can't remember. It probably was a few months ago. Maybe last year. I forget, he was on there bitching about something about having to pay millions of dollars in taxes. Honey, you're the wealthiest man in the world. Yeah. So what if you had to pay $1 billion in taxes? You're gonna make that money back over again. Yes. I'm gonna just drink some soda. Oh well, sparkling water.
Sparkling water. No, oh my God, I was just like, yes to everything, because it's so true. You know, it seems like we're on a tangent, but we're not, because all of this goes into gentrification, this entitlement of, like, you know, yes, I'm not saying you can't move into a community. If you want to move, if you're in Chicago, you want to move into Englewood, look, by all means, you free country, you get to do whatever you want. But you can't come in and expect that community to change for you. And you just can't expect, you know, traditions to be done away with, like, things, you know, you just have to respect what's there. And I think that's what we're trying to get to, is like, let's respect the communities that have been there. I mean, and I think obviously it goes back to how this country was started. The people that came here did not respect the people and traditions and the languages and everything that was already existing and thriving
without
in the Americas. Because let's be truthful, it's the Americas from the south to the north.
To the north, from top to bottom.
They were thriving, they were fine, they were, they had their culture, they had their languages, they had their music, they had traditions, they had ways of farming and agriculture, like all these things. And here you come thinking my way is better. We have manifest destiny. God sent us, blah, 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 all these things. And it's the same mentality. And unfortunately, it has seeped into all of our mentalities one way or another, because we all at some point exhibit it and be like, I'm like, well, this service is trash. I can't believe it. I was like, even that expectation of like even that, like those little things that you just wouldn't think is part of the long history that is the United States of America. And now you're taking this same mentality and the same idea of colonizing into countries that already were colonized.
Already colonized.
They've been colonized once. They got their independence. They don't need you coming back and trying to do the same thing again. And the same thing of like, here in Chicago, white individuals coming into communities of color, particularly because it's a shorter commute to work. If I go into East Garfield Park, if I go to Pilsen and I live there. And it's not just white. I mean, I can be a gentrifier as well.
Yeah.
I go because like, and that's the thing that we all have, as I believe, we all have to take accountability of the actions and how we're moving into other people's spaces and how we operate in those spaces and what we do and what we really want to represent. I'm like, I don't think Mexico wants to completely be like, oh, nobody can move here, like we don't
nobody's saying that. No.
I was like, but it's more of like, if you're gonna move here, then how about you respect and honor the spaces that you're in, respect the people that are there, but also don't all come like at once. Like, why do you? I'm like, again, I go back to, if you're leaving because you think the United States is going to the trash, which I know Martina
is. It's a hell in a handbasket.
I was like, I couldn't remember what you say.
From the South, so that's what we say down there. I said to people, and people just shake their head at me. I'm like, it's true. I'm telling you.
Y'all. But then who is then trying to stop it from going that way? How can we work to ensure that we don't have to leave and go mess up a country that we already messed up? These countries that people are moving to, the United States has done some very ugly, shady, underhanded, things, and have done things in covert ways in Central and South America.
They probably still are. I don't think it's a thing of the past.
I think you're right. We can't talk about as it was in the past. I think it's still really happening, and it's like, no, like we have to recognize, like, these countries, they need us to just stay away. Like, because people are like, well, why doesn't the Mexican government do anything? Because we have trashed these systems. The United States and other powers, Western powers, have trashed their systems, have made it into this idea that white supremacy and these capitalistic and colonial patriarchal mindsets have taken hold in so many of our countries, Latin American countries. And it's like, the US played such a huge role, and these colonizers played such a huge role, that they're still feeling the impacts, and they're trying to decolonize all these things. They're trying to, like, but yeah, it takes time. It takes time to do away with corruption. I was like, talk about corruption. Chicago and Illinois, one of the most corruptive states and even cities. And it's like, it's going to take ages to come through on the other side because of all the things that people in power did beforehand. The same way with any other country that has been impacted. And it's unfortunate that now they have to deal with Americans coming in. And in Mexico, actually, the dollar is worth 20 pesos.
Okay.
So imagine you go with $200 and you know.
I know you can, boy.
You got a good amount of money. You go with $1,000.
Shoot, $1,000, you down there on a shopping spree.
You go $1,000 here, it's gone.
$1,000 here is gone shit in a few hours, if that.
So it's really like, I don't know. I don't know if it's because obviously my parents are Mexican and I've seen sort of their struggle and they've heard, and it's like, man, are we as Americans really that selfish and that ignorant and that sort of like mentality of like, well, if I can do it, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna move out there and and forget everybody. And they should speak my language.
Yes. They are. I mean,
I know. I just hate it.
We got teachers out here paying to get school supply for their students, paying for food for their students. That's not a part of their job description. No. That's not what they went to school for.
That's why they're quitting.
It is why they quit, because they're tired. They've been doing this for the longest time, and it's a shame. Yeah. We have coaches that play in Ivy League schools, and don't even get started on professional sports, that make more than college professors do. And these people have multiple degrees, so it's really interesting what we value here. And people want to talk, so much about, saving kids and doing all that. Well, obviously you can't care, or else you care for the kids that are in certain neighborhoods and you ain't caring about the other ones. That's obviously it too. I mean, we got people who are homeless. We got tents all over Chicago of people that ain't got no place to go. And people have, snappy things they want to say about it. But what are you doing to make a difference? And I ain't talking about,
it ain't my problem.
Exactly. It's not my problem. I know people feel like, well, I don't know what to do. None of us know what to do. Even like, but this is why we got all these great people to try to figure out what to do. These are really hard. Like you said, these things not happening overnight. Like we didn't get to these spots overnight. So these things are not going to change overnight. But if we keep going the way we're going, if we keep not looking up because we just got blinders on, or we have the rose-colored glasses and just pretend like, well, if we don't acknowledge it, again, any sort of accountability, it's not really happening, especially if it's not impacting you. Listen, there are plenty of things that may not be impacting me, but I care about other people.
Yeah.
And I think, that's the part of it too. People just, again, I don't know if they just don't care, or they literally just don't know what to do. And so they just keep on going about life, just acting like nothing's happening and everything is peachy keen. And it's just like, but that's not the way it is. Like, I'm not trying to say, woe is me and doom and gloom all over the time. But, we keep having these same problems and keep talking about these same things over and over again. And there's so many ways to improve it. So many ways that we could be improving society as a whole. Because to me, gentrification, I was thinking that's like modern day colonization. Because when you said colonization, it really, really made me thought about that. Literally,
it really is.
It is.
That's such a good point on that. Yeah,
it's modern day colonization. And for people, I think for people who may be of color who are going to these countries, going to Mexico and behaving this way, you should know how I feel. You know how it feels to be different. To have someone come into your neighborhood, or maybe affect the color of your skin, the hair on your head, whatever it is. You know how it is. And that to me says, that's also very interesting, because it's just like, I don't know. It's sometimes people that are oppressed continue to oppress other people. Because that's just a cycle in itself as well. And some people think, they get up and get on and make a little money. They think they're better than everybody, which I think is also a thing too. But all of us have to leave this earth. We can't take this stuff with us. But while we're here, we should at least try to help each other. And I just think, I think it's great we got, philanthropy and all this, but honey, it is not enough. It is under, again, we shouldn't be having kids who can't afford school supply. Like, women still out here get charged for buying tampons and pads. Why are women having to pay for that? That's ridiculous. Again, why is education something in this country that it wants to be valued so much, education, but then people can't even go to school. And it's like, oh, you can go just take out a loan. You can have a 20-year-old take out a loan. They don't even know maybe how to balance a checkbook, or hell, nowadays we don't even have checkbooks, but even have an app on your phone.
How long it can take for someone to find a job
after they graduate. And I don't know. This is like so many things. Again, it's a lot of things that's real fucked up with this country. And a lot of those things, I think people are taking with them to other places. Don't bring your fucked up ways to some other place you going to. No, don't do that. And that's what's happening, taking your fucked up mindsets and the way things have always gone in like your community or your country, and you're going to another place where you don't know anything about, and trying to insert those ways and just to make somebody speak that language. Well, I need you to speak English. Well, I need you to go back to where you come from. Okay. So it's just, I don't know. I just feel like people, they need to take these glasses off and they need to see what's going on. Like, I don't know. I just feel, people are, I know we haven't talked too much about Puerto Rico, even though we mentioned it. But people act like Puerto Rico is just not a part of the United States. I don't blame Puerto Ricans for not want to be a part of this. I don't blame you. I really don't. I don't blame you at all if they don't want to be. I don't blame you. But that's not the point. They still are part of this country, and they get treated like second-class citizens.
Yeah.
And now the people are back over there, and now they ain't got no power again. And I don't know what FEMA's doing or federal assistance happening, but the shit's slow. For somebody who went through Katrina, I know how some of these things work. And hell, I'm here in the United States, so I can't imagine how things are going on right now in Puerto Rico. It's the same thing that happened 5 years ago with Maria, and people still haven't gotten right, or the country itself still hasn't gotten right. And here they're back in this situation again.
Yeah. I can't even, I don't even have the words when I think about Puerto Rico, because as someone who lives in the United States, is Latina, and kind of and sees just the Latino community, sort of the diversity of it all, and understanding, and how and I see Puerto Rico, and I we consume so much of their music, of things, and for us who are here to not really even show care for people who are US citizens. Like, they are part of this country.
Yeah.
Like, they are, just like you and I. They have access to whatever we have access to. They have, all these things. And it's like, and for us as just citizens and community members to not lift up our voices more for Puerto Rico is mind-boggling. And I know it's immense to think, oh, what can I as an individual do? Like, what power do I have? I was like, there are so many ways. Like, I was like, y'all, you can Google local organizations that you can donate. You can, you can find if you have a Puerto Rican community, you can go there, and I'm sure someone will tell you.
Someone to tell you. Someone to take your help. Whatever it is.
And we'll tell you, like, our organizations. And I think that's what's mind-boggling to me. And I think it speaks volumes as to what the United States has done to sort of ensure that we don't see Puerto Rico as part of the United States.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because the United States government has done, and the education, all of everything has done a great job to ensure that we don't see Puerto Rico as part of this. We see it as like some third world country somewhere out there. Some people, I mean, some Americans think it's a country of its own.
They really do. Like, oh, it's so they're part of the United States. Yes, they are. They are.
Because a lot of people didn't know, like, when it wasn't until I think mostly Hurricane Maria hit, that's when people started realizing, like, oh, our government has to actually do something because they're just, you know,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, they do. And they're doing a crappy job of it, and they continue to do a crappy job of it. Like, and I think because I saw a TikTok that really just hit, it didn't hit me, but it was just like, whoa, like,
yeah.
It was just a written sort of, you know, words, just like a paragraph written of someone just saying, you know, everybody that's on the mainland, you know, you are all, you know, implicit to what's happening to Puerto Rico. Like, you are all, you know, every US citizen that's on the mainland, if you're not speaking up, then you are just part of the problem. I was like, oh, part of the problem. I really felt that. I was like,
and but see, that's because you care. See, you felt that in your bones, like, wow, yeah, you know.
I'm like, oh no, like, what can I do? I went. I was like, okay, there's a huge Puerto Rican community here. I'm sure one of the Puerto Rican organizations out here has a link for me to go donate. I don't know what I can do, but it really just made me think of like how many of us are just is it complicit or complacent? I always confuse those words.
Don't ask. It's one of them.
Tell us.
Someone tell us.
Because I can't think. My brain.
Well, we're not. Wait, you said incomplicit or incomplacent? What isn't it? Isn't it incomplacent? Oh, never mind. I know what you mean. Yes, I know what you're saying.
We understand each other.
We understand. We got it. Yeah.
And I hope y'all are listening.
I hope people listening, watching it, especially if you've been watching it from the beginning, honey. You already know. You know.
But it really just kind of speaks volumes to it, and we're all part, and you know, as big or as small as we can do, and it's not just Puerto Rico, it's any country that goes through something.
Yeah.
Because, you know, our country goes through things and people come and help us. You know, Mexico has come out and helped us, you know, when we've
don't hear about that too often. People don't talk about that enough.
No, people conveniently forget.
They forget that other countries have to help us too.
You know, and it's just those things of like, in any good relationship building, you have to just be respectful and mindful and everything. And it just boggles my mind when I think about how we as Americans sometimes think of ourselves in comparison to other countries and you know, and things like that, and how we sometimes feel entitled to things and whatnot. And like I said, I'll throw myself in there because part of me is part of the problem. Like, there are things in me, you know, like it's just, you know, we all have to be mindful. We all sometimes have to catch ourselves like, whoa, like that's something I gotta sit with and figure out. But, you know, when you said, you know, gentrification is really just modern colonization, it really is. It's just colonization in a different name. And, you know, in modern times, and like I said, I could be a gentrifier, Martina could be a gentrifier, you know, it just, you know, and I think that's the struggle, particularly in Chicago, when you think about how Chicago is segregated. We've talked about this before.
Non-belief it's segregated, yes.
You know, and I think that also causes issues when people are like, well, I want to move into Englewood, I want to move into Little Village, and it's another person of color, right? Who was trying, and there's this sort of like tension of like, well, no, this is supposed to be a certain way, and only, you know, Puerto Ricans can live here, only Mexicans can live here, only, you know, Chinese can live here, only South Asians, like this really like, you know, only Blacks can live here, like that's, and there's this really strong hold. So, and that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day, because I'm not expert on that. We might have to bring some people to have that conversation around.
That's a big one.
You know, around just, you know, gentrification and segregation and sort of how that all kind of operates in itself. But, you know, to kind of think and sort of try to bring back to full circle, because I think we've gone on a few little.
We've gone on some tangents. And this is probably quite a long video, but that's okay.
But, you know, at the end of the day, I think Americans, I feel we just need to be much more cognizant of what our actions do and the impact that we can have in other spaces, because, you know, we take with us all of the trauma that this country has inflicted on us, all of the, you know, racist crap that has, you know, been a part of our history, you know, everything. Like, we take that wherever we go. And the thing is, it's really a lot of white Americans who just continue to go to other countries and other spaces and bring with them their white privilege, their white entitlement, their racist ways, because you never really kind of unpacked all of that. And I think it's just unfortunate to see other countries continue to be impacted by the United States of America, not so much on sort of our government, but on a individual person now. Like, now it's individuals coming into your spaces and making problems and causing issues, and just, it's unfortunate.
Well, I'll say, you know, I think we've talked about being woke, you know, the wokeness that's happening. And I think as much as people are being woke about the color of somebody's skin, somebody's sexual orientation, and so forth, be woke about these issues too. You need to be woke about these issues. Like, be woke about what's like happening, could be happening maybe just a few blocks over from where you live. You know, maybe the next town over. You know, and I just, you know, yeah, just care more about, you know, I know we all have our passion things that we care about, but, you know, I think this is a real problem in this country and beyond. And so just look beyond yourself and, you know, try to care about other people and realize, you know, because I always think, you know, you never know who you're going to need in this world. My mom has always told me that. You never know. You never know who you're going to need. And so I think that, you know, people turn their nose up and don't want to do this, that, and another. Think about who you might need in this world. You know, I think that's, you know, just important. And yeah, the people who are looking for ways to help Puerto Rico, get on your Google. Hell, some of y'all might still use Yahoo. Use that too. Use it too. Use whatever your search engine is, and you can find ways to help. Because, you know, like you said, listen, somebody will take you up on this offer, whether it's donating or volunteering your time, whatever. There are plenty of ways that people can help because they are a part of this country as well. So,
yes,
yeah.
Well, I think that brings us to our close. This has been such a good conversation. I mean, if you've been with us from the beginning, you know, this is really how we started having these conversations and kind of rolling with it, because these are the kind of conversations we should be having with our friends and our family. So hopefully you can take some of what we talked about today, bring it to your circle of friends, bring it to your, you know, family. Some of them may choose to ignore you and yell at you or whatever, but, you know, these are topics that we should bring. If I happen to find some links where you can donate or just, you know, help, whether it's Puerto Rico or even, I know Mexico got hit with an earthquake. Obviously, you could also help your local communities. Look at your local food pantries, food banks, homeless shelters, women's shelters, you know, all these different things, you know, we can all play a small part in making our community and in our countries and even our world around us a little better. So with that, I will say goodbye. We will see and talk to you next time. Make sure you're following us on social media so that you know when our next episodes come live. But thank you for listening, and until next time. Peace.